Okay, we are recording. Jamie Sutherland, how are you?
I'm doing well, mate. Thank you for having me on.
Good, good, good. I mean, consummate professional there. We've already had a chat that you've lost your canoe this morning. The reality is, I living by the water in Scotland.
Yeah,
The storms that threat is real, right?
yeah, no, it's not the most rock and roll thing that's ever happened to me, but losing my canoe is vexing in the extreme. So that's it's like swallows and Amazons up here. We're just dotting around the islands. So that's
Oh well, look, fingers crossed at low tide you find your boat, mate.
yep,
Um,
yep.
but in the meantime, we're going to talk about some great records, and I've seen your list of tracks, and I'm really excited to talk about them because there's some fantastic records on there, and I think it's time that we kicked off the playlist with the song with the greatest ever intro, please, Jamie.
This is Where the Streets Have No Name by U2 off the Joshua Tree album. And probably one of the best scene-setting intros for one of my favorite albums.
It's um it's never been chosen that, and I'm stunned because I'm 560 odd episodes into this show, and one of the greatest albums ever made, and arguably one of the greatest intros to an album and to a song ever, and to a video. The video, even the intro, watching
Incredible.
the video is fantastic as well. Um, Tell me what you like about it because the song is an absolute just a banger. Um, but there's a journey to get to that song, and that intro is quite a long
Yeah.
intro. But talk me through what you love about it.
Well, I mean, I'll give a bit of sort of caveat to all of my choices here. There's nothing obscure or obtuse. I kind of gave up a long time ago in trying to, um, sort of second guess the audience or present myself in a way through my musical choices that, yeah, this is just the stuff you love. And, nobody wants to pick you too because, they're just plainly like the most unfashionable band going. But I mean, I think the Joshua Tree, the first four tracks better than any first four tracks on any album ever.
It's a really
I
good
think
point.
most bands that I know, certainly like with the Broken Record stuff going through the last sort of 15, 16 years, anybody that's got sort of has seen the bigger um scale of kind of rock and roll shows has looked to U2, even in some small way, and said like that, I would like to experience that,
Yeah,
not through hubris or just to feel it, to see it, to smell, those big stadium shows and that big sound. And I think when we talk about Where the Streets Have No Name, it just opens that right up. It's just widescreen. It's this is where music can take you, and it's thrilling. I find it thrilling.
I couldn't agree more. And what I really like about that era of you two, the songs were that big
Hmm.
that they filled the stadium without any screens. They didn't need to get a telephone to God and phone Salman Rushdie midway through a show or anything like that. The songs were big enough. They didn't need all the elaborate stuff that followed with Zeropa and Actung Baby, etc. Bono didn't need to be in a giant lemon. What he needed to do was just put a white vest on, take his ponytail out, and sing the songs.
I just built it out.
And it
So
was more than enough, wasn't it? And
yeah.
yeah, Where the Streets Have No Name is just it's just a fucking incredible record. It really is, and you know it transcends. I mean, I think the Pet Shop Boys had a number one with their cover of it, and it works. Like just even in like a kind of synth pop format, that song transcends. It's
Totally.
just a great record, and I've never thought of it how you've said it in the first four tracks because the first four tracks are going to be obviously Streets Have No Name,
Still haven't found what I'm looking for.
With or Without You.
And Bullet the Blue Sky.
Yeah, I mean, come
Just
on.
like as just like hook after hook after hook, you're just beating you into submission there. It's
I've got to be honest, right? I love them all,
hmm,
but my favorite track on that album is Red Hill Mining Town.
yeah.
Uh, that that bit where he screams "Love" slowly stripped away,
Oh,
like I just give myself goosebumps thinking about it, and it's like I just when anyone ever goes, "Oh, Bono's just a tit, man," like, and it that they're them and Coldplay. They're just not cool to like. But there's a reason that they're the biggest bands in the world because go back, they've got so many great fucking records.
Got the chops. I mean, Bono can sing. He can
Yeah,
sing. There isn't anyone that really comes close to him. Do you see the Coldplay Glastonbury set? I mean, I watched it on the BBC. I mean, it's amazing. I don't know anybody that can.
yeah,
I'm lucky enough to, worked as a promoter as well, and I put on, hundreds of shows over a career, as well as played hundreds of shows and seen hundreds of shows, and there are so few people that can do that.
yeah,
It just, I mean, yes, you got the experience, and I mean, I know I couldn't, I
mm,
mean, I'd hope to learn how to do that. Well, I don't want to do that anymore. I used to want to do that. Um, but, to have the capacity to, captivate that many people, um, very few people can do that.
yeah,
It's so difficult.
yeah,
So when people dismiss, the U2s and the Coldplays, I mean, in the grand scheme of, all musicians and all of music, there will be people who do the small stuff and there are people that do the big stuff, and they do the big stuff and they do it incredibly well. And I've always sort of admired and respected it, and just the talent of it,
yeah.
incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Tell me about your approach to songwriting and essentially the intro. You know, we live in a world now where everything's very fast, disposable, attention spans are shorter, and you know the streaming services are awash with music that is new and interesting. You know, do any of them things factor into your consideration when you're writing that maybe you know don't bore us, give us the chorus kind of mentality of
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a short answer. No, I mean, at the moment, I think I've got to the stage, in my career where, um, I really, sort of cliche, you're sort of making records for yourself, but I have so I have no expectation for them anymore. Um, and then it's a really nice place to be. And I did the Broken Records thing and we're still going for the last 16 years, and I've done the full sort of band experience, and we're kind of at the stage now where we all did we had kids, families, mortgages, we had to go and, sort of get jobs and be a bit more stable. So, and then without sounding conceited, I've stopped relying on music you know, to provide a living for me. So I've kind of stopped feeling like I have to play that game so much, and so
you feel
I
that took pressure off you as a
completely. I mean, when you're working as a musician, fiscal pressure leads to, sometimes bad decision making, or compressed or very limited decision making. You have to fit your art into a format that's sort of defined and presented to you. This is how to get ahead or be successful.
yeah
And there are kind of, hoops you have to jump through, and things you have to do. And those are fine because every artist works within a set of brackets, and if that's what you're doing, those are the brackets presented to you, then you have to present your art within that. It's otherwise infinite, um, infinite artistic choices leads to sort of, infinite possibilities, and you rarely get anything good done. It's too messy. So if you want to make a really tight, concise pop record, those are the brackets you have to work in. I, with the singer-songwriter stuff, I've kind of moved into a place where I'm quite happy to slip into the kind of, the songwriting shoe slippers a little bit. There's a very sort of clear landscape of artists who've gone before me, and that's a kind of tradition that I'm sort of really excited and interested in. But it's sort of defined and laid out for you, and you can move into it and be comfortable. Those are the brackets I'm working in. I don't feel there's much of a need to get to the chorus within the first 30 seconds.
sure.
To a very long answer to your question, but yeah, no, I quite like doing it on my terms, and seeing where it takes me, because I don't really have an expectation for what the audience is.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. Jamie, tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
So I remember this distinctly. I was living in Rotterdam in the Netherlands at the time. My mum and dad were working over there. My mum had Tracy Chapman's Fast Car on all the time. Must have been about 87, 88, I think that record came out. So what was I, about 6 or 7 at the time? Um, yeah, I just remember it being well, it's an amazing song.
Mm.
And she's just got one of the best voices ever. And they had, I can't remember who did it, earlier in the summer or the end of last year. There was a country cover of it.
That's right. Yeah,
Can't remember who
he
did the song.
duetted with her, didn't he, at the Grammys, I believe, or the Emmys, or whatever it was.
That's right, and it took this, this sort of white country singer to finally have Tracy Chapman sort of recognized on the stage
Yeah,
in Nashville. But I mean, she's just amazing. I saw her at circa 99, 2000 in the Usher Hall in Edinburgh, and she was absolutely brilliant. But she's just got one of those voices that sort of time stands still a little bit. And it's a great, in terms of the lyric, the story is really great, and the idea of escape. And much like Where the Streets Have No Name as well, there's a wide openness, it's a
yeah,
moving song, when you listen to it in a car, it makes sense.
yeah.
It's just, yeah, no, no, and it's still, I remember being in Holland, hearing that song, but the song just does something to me, hits a bit inside you. You're not quite sure why or
I,
how.
I think if it didn't, there'd be something wrong with you. I
Mm.
think that song, you know, I was probably like maybe 14, 15 when that come out, and that track, it just, I was getting excited by guitars at this point, and then I heard that, and I was like, whoa. And then I think the follow up single was talking about Revolution, and I
Oh,
was like, "Fucking hell, this is just as good." And then it was Baby Can You Hold Me Tonight, and it was like, "Oh my god!"
I
Like,
very nearly picked that one, but
oh
but I was like, I think the Ronan Keating, the Boyzone version, killed it for me a bit. But
no, I
and that
know,
one's that you can't listen to that song and not get a lump in your throat.
I
Like it's
know,
vocal is that good.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the Netherlands there and growing up. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about what home was like when you was growing up, Jane. Was it a musical place?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we moved around a bit when we were kids. Got two brothers. I'm the middle one. I remember, mum was always listening to, whatever the kind of newer, sort of poppy, but sort of on the more interesting scale of what was in the charts at the time. And my dad was a huge Bob Dylan fan, so like waking up every morning was just, the sound of Bob Dylan blasting from downstairs. And regularly, throughout my life being sat down and and well, not sat down, but it's a language to communicate in, Bob Dylan, and the various, stages and outtakes, different versions of songs. What do you think of this? So that and my dad's a big classical music fan as well, so Mahler and all that stuff. But my mom has kept up with music far more than my dad. She's a huge Coldplay fan, but she generally, through our career, has managed to sort of really into her 70s just keep track of all the new kind of acts coming out. And
Fantastic.
yeah, no, nobody was playing music, but subsequently my brother and I have taken it on. But um, but very enthusiastic, engaged in music. It was always on.
When you heard Tracy Chapman back then, and you'd become, I guess, pretty well educated via your dad on Bob Dylan. Could you hear the kind of correlation there of, like, maybe that kind of storytelling and that sort of acoustic singer songwriter influence that Dylan must have had on Tracy Chapman?
Yeah, 100%. And the structure, I think I started to understand the structure and I mean, I don't remember doing it, but I think I was about maybe 9 or 10. We'd moved to Edinburgh by that point, maybe about 10, and I'd asked to get guitar lessons. And I remember maybe by the time I was 12, I was writing my first songs. But it was always, I mean, I actually remember distinctly the memory of writing my first song. I could play it to you now. But um I remember the structure, that you needed to have a verse, and then you had to change into the bridge, and then, you kind of needed to have something hooky around the chorus. It was like it was laid out there. So I guess, that sort of songwriting lineage that Dylan kind of took from the folkies and then started to sort of, make into a sort of a more pop thing that crossed over, and then other people
Yeah.
took that, kicked the can on again. But the clear lineage between that and someone like Tracy Chapman, where it is just an acoustic guitar and a story, has always kind of resonated with me. It's
Tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please, Jamie.
so this one's what we're talking solidly mid to late 90s here. And this is probably about the time where I really started wanting to be a musician professionally and be in bands, and it seemed like the best thing in the world. It was Ash, Girl from Mars, one of the all-time stone cold Britpop classics, although they were about 16 at the time, so they can't only have been a couple of years older than me. Radiohead, Fake Plastic Trees, Off the Bends, which, because they got famous in America before really the UK, and this was the time where there was no crossover. What was big in America was this mythical, magical thing. The idea that Radiohead sort of felt like they came out of absolutely nowhere and didn't exist anywhere.
Mm.
Fake Plastic Trees was this amazing kind of what's this about? Who are these guys? And the Verve Sonnet again, just a big, massive, epic. Richard Ashcroft's vocals just incredible, and
Yeah.
that Urban Hymns record was something else. So
It was good times, guitar music then, and to go back to Radiohead, they played my venue, and we've got the contract framed on the wall that Radiohead agreed to play the Pink Toothbrush as support to the Sultans of Ping FC for the agreed sum of £75 and a case of lager. And
good
so
to see inflation hasn't gone up with band fees as well. That's
and that was kind of, obviously Creep had happened, and they'd tasted a bit of chart success, and I don't even think anyone can play guitar done a lot in the charts, and Pablo Honey was a kind of just a sort of standard indie album of that year, and like you say, they kind of blew up in the States, and I don't know what they were listening to over there, but to then come back with the Bends, it was like, holy shit,
Yeah.
what has happened here? This is different level. And it was High and Dry the first single.
Yeah.
High and Dry, Fake Plastic Trees. No, My Iron Lung. They done an EP
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
before. That's right. Then High and Dry, Fake Plastic Trees, and it was like, wow, this is special. And I've got a little weird little story about Ash. You talked about how young they were. The guy that was managing my band at the time uh, got a call saying, "Look, can you maybe leave this band for a little while? I need you to chaperone this band because they're 15 and they're coming over from Ireland, and they've got
Yeah.
this song called Kung Fu." And it was like,
Oh,
and he was offered the job of, I guess, managing or chaperoning Ash because they were too young to do anything. But oh my god, what I mean, when you're that young and you're writing Kung Fu and Girl from Mars, you're destined for greatness, aren't you? That's just perfect punk pop.
yeah. I mean, I don't get any. You really don't get guitar 3 minute. Your power pop, 3 minute pop songs. They don't
Yeah.
get any better. And Goldfinger as well was the other one.
Oh,
The brilliant
yeah.
song.
And a little later on, Burn Baby Burn is a
Ah,
absolute gem of a pop single.
what was the one? Another one that gets me in the it's the Ash loving, but it's the Life Less Ordinary soundtrack. I can't
Yeah, yeah,
remember.
yeah. Super.
But like that chorus thing. I mean, yeah, it's a brilliant, brilliant song.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Did you enjoy school?
No, not particularly.
What was that?
Um, uh, I, I just as with a lot of people that play music, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and it didn't involve any of the things that. My big regret is not studying music. I struggle to call myself a musician, even though I've sort of managed to make a living out of it for a long time. Is uh I'm a songwriter. I was always able to write songs, and I didn't really need a guitar or a piano to do that. You know, I could give me a noise and I could write a song around it. But I not really understand what I was doing. But I kind of wish I'd studied music at school a bit more because it probably would have helped.
What to read
See,
music?
yeah, to read music, to understand about sort of harmony a little bit more and some of the more technical elements of it. I think you'd make decisions a lot quicker than we could have saved a lot of arguments if you'd actually know what you were talking
Yeah,
about. But in regards to the rest of school, I didn't really want to be there. I wouldn't really connect. I liked English. I liked writing and reading. History, always been big into history. But the sciences and languages and things like that, I just, now, I mean, I actually went back and did a master's 2 years ago, part time, and got that just to have a piece of paper and a bit of academia because I felt like a bit of a chip on my shoulder by not having it. And it was great to go back to university and learn it and learn under your own terms and your own steam. I just kind of felt like I was on a bit of a treadmill at school, and I just wanted to get out of it. So play music.
you know that you mentioned that twice now that like all you wanted to do was music and to be that sure of what you wanted to do at a young age, I always find really interesting. Um, where like what was going on around you in the areas that you were growing up in that made you think it was possible to have success in a band?
Well, I mean, the 90s, I mean, what we're talking about, I mean, these tracks, I mean, Fake Plastic Trees 95, Ash 96, but you're talking about, and a lot of people sort of dismiss it now, not to talk too much about politics, but Britain didn't feel the sad little place it feels like at the moment. We're talking about, New Labour and Tony Blair coming in and Cool Britannic and, all these bands really, the place was booming.
Well,
And there
guitar
was,
bands were the biggest pop bands.
yeah,
They were pop
and the,
stars. Liam, Noel, Jarvis, Brett, they were all
yeah.
Richard Ashcroft pop stars.
Yeah, and the record industry was, for all of its faults, was really going as well. Broken Records caught the tail end of the record industry, and even then, some of the figures that were being floated about in 2008, nine, just kind of crazy money.
Yeah.
Um, I was very lucky, and it comes with a caveat. I mean, Edinburgh's got its series of sort of merchant schools, which aren't like sort of they are fee-paying schools. They're not like the big public schools. So I'm always careful when I'm talking about that. I come from son of two doctors, thoroughly sort of middle class upbringing. Um, and I guess I was very lucky to have that privilege, that things seemed attainable. If you kind of, you know, um, if you just put your head down and sort of tried to do it, I mean, there was no sort of nepotism. My family didn't have any, contacts in the music industry, but I was given a decent education. As I said, I went on that treadmill for not knowing anything else to do, and ended up going up to the University of St Andrews, and I was there for a bit and met a lot of good musician friends who, are still pals now. But even then, not really wanting to be there, just wanting to play music, and I've always felt slightly guilty about sort of messing about there a little bit just because I was taking somebody else's opportunity to do it. But I don't know. I guess what was around there at the time to play music. I just a certain belief, I guess, as well. I thought I was quite good. I felt like I had something that I wanted to get out of me, and it was all I could think about and dreamt about in class, and couldn't sleep because you were just dreaming about music the whole time. And it's that unfortunately hasn't changed. That's
Mm.
still last night.
Was you
Um,
confident?
all consuming. Yeah, compulsive.
And you was a confident young man.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I was incredibly shy. Still am. It's been noticed that as I've got older, I close my eyes more on stage, and that's like I feel uncomfortable being up there a lot of the time, and and it was definitely the case at school, but there was a drive there. Definitely, there was like this is something I want to do. And a desire to get out and see the world, and I'm feeling like the music was the means of doing that. I think my dad always traveled quite a lot in his work as a doctor. And I quite liked the idea of moving from city to city, and being peripatetic and not being settled. And, you know, And I think where I went in Edinburgh as well, there was definitely, I felt like a sort of treadmill of, going to, it was Daniel Stewart's. I went to one of the merchant schools, and most of my, I've got a lot of great friends. Most of my best friends are from my school days. But there was definitely a sense of, a lot of people went into financial services, accountancy, lawyers, and then, you just kind of you saw the future, and you could see their kids going to the same school and doing the same thing, and this kind of treadmill of, I just didn't want to do that. It just kind of, the whole thing just turned me off. I think I can't, it was a chicken before the egg, I guess. Did music turn me off it, or did I gravitate towards music because I was so turned off it that was the way out of it?
Yeah.
But I wasn't. You do sort of wonder what it was you're running away from, but it's you want to go and do something.
Tell me the first record you remember buying from a record shop, please.
So I have a distinct memory of my dad, recognizing that I was listening to music the whole time. Went out and, again, talking privilege here. He took me down to B&Q or wherever, Curry's it was at the time, down in Cannon Mills, and picked me up a little stereo, and I needed something to play on it because I was using just a tiny little tape deck thing, and still recording off the radio on
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And at the time it was 95, and it's Mosley Shoals by Ocean Colour Scene. The Riverboat Song was everywhere, TFI Friday, Day We Caught the Train as well.
Yeah.
Amazing song. Um, and yeah, no, I love that record. I still do? It's dated more than a lot of those other records have, in my opinion. But some classic songs on there. But that whole yeah, mid 90s mod thing, I think it was probably around the time of Euro 96 as well, where again, certainly England, but by extension, more so at that time, the UK felt like the place was sort of bouncing a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh,
I find them a really interesting band because um, they, I mean, they had, a fair few uh, big singles, and that album was obviously big. And of all them bands from that era, there's lots that you see now kind of doing like the sort of Shine Weekenders and sort of doing this kind of nostalgia circuit. But and there's bands on there that probably have more chart success than Ocean Colour Scene. But Ocean Colour Scene, I think because of that mod thing that you said, like I think they've managed to sort of sidestep that scene a little bit, and they still sell big shows out. And obviously, I think Craddock's Weller connection probably
uh,
helps kind of fan the flames of that as well. Um, but do you know what? The last time I was in Scotland was for a wedding, and
mm,
it was in a castle in Edinburgh for a pal of mine, and they were the wedding band, like which was pretty surreal.
pretty
And
great wedding band.
pardon?
It was a great wedding band. Yeah.
Yeah, it was them and a band from where I'm from called The Milk, fantastic, and yeah, I was just like when I got there, I got in a lift, and I looked at this guy and I thought because he looks a lot different nowadays, Simon Fowler, and I was like that looks like the bloke from Ocean Colour Scene, and then when I got to the thing, I saw Steve Craddock, and I was like, oh my god. And like, so I said, yeah, they're playing the wedding. I was like, Jesus Christ! Like, what happened to like a shit DJ? People have now got Ocean Colour Scene playing their
Yeah,
wedding. I think is it the Circle? Was that a track on?
that's right. Yeah, that's
That
another
was
good
their
one
first
for them.
dance played by them, which is yeah, that's quite a moment. But
I
yeah,
mean, when they come up to Scotland, they'll do like 3 nights at the Barras, sold
yeah,
out minutes, and I mean, I still remember they did Stirling Castle show as well, didn't they? And I wasn't there, but sort of 96, 97. I mean, big gigs.
yeah,
Tea in the Park, it's always a packed, well, the now defunct Tea in the Park. It was always
yeah.
huge crowds for them.
And do you know what? I ended up working with Steve Craddock on a few bits. I'm a promoter as well,
Yeah.
and a club promoter, and I the one thing I've never been into is like cars, like, and so many promoters I know drive around in flash cars, and like, I've just never been into it. It's just not my thing. And I had a shitty old Citroen Picasso, and we put a night on at the Jazz Cafe in Camden. Like kind of this was a few years ago, like sort of retro indie night, and I've done it with Steve, and I was waiting outside the venue because he was driving up from Cornwall, and he phoned me. So I'm just coming around the corner. So I'm expecting someone to come around on like a Lambretta or something like that. Steve fucking Craddock from Ocean Colour Scene come around the corner in a Citroen Picasso. I was
There
like,
we go.
fucking get in.
Life choices.
I've never felt cooler, mate.
It's yeah, no. You under the latter stages of from midlife onwards of being a musician, it's picking your battles. Like, which bits do you want to represent your rock and roll credentials? That's
Oh,
the flashy car, but it'll be the motorhome back at home. But you'll be staying in a tent. It's
oh dear. Okay, tell me, please, the song that soundtrack your year's clubbing, please, Jamie.
so this one was the definitely the trickiest one because I remember drinking at a lot of clubs.
Hmm.
I remember being at a lot of clubs.
Where was this? Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, I mean, I was St Andrews. The clubbing scene was limited. The Bop on a Friday night back in Edinburgh. I remember a lot of Daft Punk around the time. Couldn't tell you um, any particular. One More Time probably be the big one, but that's 2004 or five. But no, I was never been into clubs. It was always by extension to go there. You know, girls were generally around. That was always a major plus.
Yeah.
And extending a night out. But certainly I don't have any real sort of connoisseur's choice in regard to to clubbing. It's always something that sort of slightly bypassed me. That so
So was it sort of indie dance club nights,
indie
that sort of
stuff like
thing?
the Egg, which was the art school club. That was kind of the stuff that
Yeah,
we'd go to. I mean, sort of bouncing around to Sonic Youth, Teenage Riot, played really loud. That was a big one.
yeah,
Um, I used to, what was the Rat by the one of my all-time favorite bands, the Walkmen. The Rat was always one that was sort of generally tend to get folk going. So yeah, the Egg was always kind of the choice for us, and generally gravitating around anywhere the art school kids kind of went after I'd left uni. But when I was back in Edinburgh, it was kind of where you sort of wanted to get to because that was where sort of the good music, in my opinion, like the good guitar music was getting played, and there
yeah,
was a lot of stuff around that time that you could, the AAS like Pin and stuff like that. It's like great songs you could just bounce around a room to.
yeah. I mean, you've you mentioned Sonic Youth and the Walkman. There, both them tracks are big contenders for some of the greatest intros ever.
Yeah,
Eh,
yes,
The Rat. I'm going to put my neck on the line here. Indie DJ, and venue promoter of the last 33 years. I'm going to say that's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, indie single ever. I think The Rat is as close to perfect as it gets. For an indie dance floor, the fucking energy in that song, the drumming
totally.
is just different level.
The vocal because it's
Oh,
it's that bit that is too high for him
yeah,
and he's struggling all the time. But it's the tension in the struggle to get there that's
yeah,
like so exciting.
yeah. Oh, do
Uh,
you know what? About 5 years prior to hearing The Rat, it was the last knockings of my band, and we was playing a little venue, tiny little kind of toilet circuit venue in Chelmsford. And we got told we're supporting this band that are getting a bit of hype from America called Jonathan Fire Eater. And I was like, all right, cool. And that's when I heard his voice, and I was like, fuck, this guy's voice is ridiculous. And like,
yeah,
I think a few of them were in Jonathan Fire Eater, and then yeah, then 5 years later, I see the video to The Rat on MTV, and I'm like, that's them dudes. That's Jonathan Fire Eater. Wow, and like, unbelievable. Like, just a fantastic record. His solo stuff's amazing. Like, yeah, he's a dude.
he's massive as well.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this till I met him once. Um, yeah, he's like 6'4", 6'5" or so. I just remember, yeah, I'm
Really?
6'1". I remember just looking up at him. He's huge, huge
Wow.
guy. That
Okay. Um, I'm going to take you home for this track. So I'm going to ask you, please, to tell me favorite song from an artist from your home county.
again, I'm not going subtle here. I'm not going subversive. We're going Downtown Lights by the Blue Nile, one of the greatest bands ever, if not the greatest band ever. And Hole of the Moon by the Waterboys, just stone cold classics. Like,
Do you know what? Like,
people don't write songs like that anymore.
I was so late to the party on Blue Nile, and
Yeah.
like, because you don't discover Blue Nile, someone goes, have you heard of Blue Nile? And you're like,
No.
no. Everything's going to be all right. Have a listen. And then you're like, oh my God. Like, I can't wait to tell someone about this band. And, oh, mate, like, they just feel like the best kept secret.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
My mate played me hats at school, and my mate Donnie, and I love him. But he every time he tries to push music onto me because I can be a little contrary, uh, I tend to go like, nah, shite. And that's and then the Paul Buchanan solo record, Thin Air, Midair came out, and the title track of that album is just like one of the best pieces of music ever written. I don't know why I didn't choose it for this because it's amazing. Um,
you got to meet
and
him?
I saw him at Celtic Connections just this year
Oh,
doing some Blue Nile tracks with the SCO. Incredible.
oh,
Um,
fantastic.
and his voice is just amazing. But then went back to Hats and Tinseltown on the Rain and the Rain, and like those two albums. And it's a bit of a cliche because I always say like albums sound like places. I can't listen to those records and not see Glasgow. It sounds like Glasgow. It's a completely sort of synesthesia kind of thing. I know that's not the right term, but it's kind of you can visualize a place almost immediately.
That's not an easy thing to do, is it? Create something that sonically gives you that picture.
Yeah.
Like,
And it goes full circle now because I think people can't be in Glasgow without hearing the Blue Nile.
yeah,
It's like the two are absolutely in the marrow of, they're in the foundations now.
yeah,
Paul Buchanan is just like, he's royalty, so going around in Glasgow. I think they're extraordinary artists, but like that Downtown Lights particularly is when when you get to the end of the verse and then it kicks into I've forgotten the words now, it's embarrassing. That bit and with the high harmony,
yeah.
it's just amazing. Like total showstopper of a tune. The Whole of the Moon, I mean, it's my dad's absolute favorite song. It's mine as well. I mean, it just lyrically, the way the song's constructed, just everything about it just is perfect and feels like it's been really considered.
Yeah,
Um, when the cannon goes off and it's so totally bombastic, but like perfect in its bombast.
yeah,
It's just like this is the 1980s big shiny production. We're going to throw absolutely everything at it, but the tune holds up, which is why you can throw everything at it. Like sometimes when you're doing the big production numbers, like if the song's not good enough, it will just get drowned in production. Uh, I know that from personal experience on a few Broken Records checks, but you know,
that's
um,
so important what you said then,
yeah.
Jamie, because there's so many songs of that era that you know was ridiculous. Big budget on production, and it was all whistles and bells, everything up to 11 that have just disappeared,
Mhm.
and you strip that song back, Whole of the Moon, and however you hear it, it's perfect.
Yeah.
His vocal is ridiculous.
Aye.
Yeah, and obviously they'd really hit their stride at that point. And
Aye.
I don't know how many lineup changes might have happened by that point, but I think he can create a bit of magic. Like what's the his cover of Sweet Thing, isn't it? A cover Sweet
Amazing.
Thing.
Yeah,
Oh
Fisherman's
God.
Blues.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's how you can take something off of Astral Weeks and make it your own and make it as good as.
Yeah.
That ain't easy, is it? Like,
No.
that's an ambitious song to take on and
Yeah.
fucking nail it is ridiculous.
And just to take that kind of career left turn as well after, Hold the Moon and, if you're finishing on This Is the River at the
Oh,
end of that record was an amazing song and the vocal, This is the river, when he does that, it absolutely kills you. And then the next thing they do, I think, I could be wrong chronologically, is just breaking into Fisherman's Blues.
was
Stylistically wildly different.
yeah.
You're kind of to take those kind of career left turns and just throw yourself into them wholeheartedly. It takes real courage to do.
And when you go back to it's a girl called Johnny, isn't it? Like, and you
Yes.
Girl Called Johnny. I mean, that sounds like a Madness record. It just
Mm.
sounds like a fantastic, like, kind of mid-era Madness of just like really good stomping pianos and there's you look at the Waterboys career and the progression in quite a short space of time, how they kind of become, what they were through, amazing, record after amazing record. Yeah. I'm so glad you chose these records today. Honestly, it's like everyone I read that list, I thought, I'm so excited to talk about these records because
Yeah.
no one's chosen yet. And I don't know why, because they're great records.
Well, I was talking to my wife about this not long ago, and I kind of like, I think the older you get, I'm not exactly old, but it's I think you just have to appreciate, like, there's just craft in this stuff. It's just like, when you stop seeing whether the context that the thing lies within. So you can say where the streets have no name, and the first thing a lot of people are going to go is, oh, it's U2, they're Shy, or Bono, or this or that. But you just like get rid of that. Just you
Mm.
know, what's the song? How did they make the thing? Because
Yeah.
the thing is near perfect.
Yeah.
Um, you just have to appreciate it. Yeah, it's so difficult to do. Um, and
Have
that's
you
why
watched,
only a few of them exist.
just to go back to that, um, every now and again I'll be flicking through the TV and see one of them like classic album shows.
Yeah,
Have you seen the Joshua Tree one?
yeah, many times.
Where Edge is just sitting at that desk messing with that intro, and he's just and then we had this, and it's like, and then you that sort of kick drum, and it's like, fuck, this is
Nah,
amazing.
but I think the salient out of that, the salient point was when Bono was talking about Daniel Lanois, and
Yeah,
he's just going like, "You're just a better musician sitting next to him in a room." Like he just exudes. I know a few people like that. What when they're around, everything you play is better. It just sounds better.
yeah,
It makes more sense. They just have a way of, you know, um, so you can't put your finger on why or how it happens, but they're just able to go like less of that, and then you
yeah,
just play something and it's magic. And it's I've always wanted to work with Daniel Lanois. My
yeah,
favorite Bob Dylan records are actually Time Out of Mind and Oh Mercy, the two
yeah,
ones he did with Daniel Lanois, and they got that kind of Southern Gothic feel to them,
yeah.
and just atmosphere. He's amazing.
Oh, wonderful. Right, Jamie, it's your last track, and this is where you get to be tastemaker. Um, can you tell the listeners of the podcast, please, a song that you think they may not know that
Uh,
you'd like them to hear?
yeah, well, this one's by a guy I'm lucky enough to call a pal. It's Rick Redbeard, or formerly of the Phantom Band, and he released this song. I bought it straight away. It's Time Will Leave Nothing. It's got a bit of Tom Waits. It's got a bit of it's just all Rick. It's just a classic. It's a beautiful song. And when I speak about fellow songwriters, the highest credit you could possibly ever give them is like I kind of wish I'd written it.
Yeah,
It's kind of like, you bastards, you got there. But I could never write a song like that. It's just him, his voice, his music, but it's beautiful. I love it. So
wonderful. Well, Jamie, we make it easy for the listeners of the podcast to check that out amongst all the other songs that we've spoken about today, because we'll put together a little Spotify playlist to accompany the show so people can go and listen to all of that. And obviously, then go and listen to your music. So before we wrap things up, let's talk about your music. What's happening?
yeah. So I got a record coming out on the 6th of September called The World That It Used to Be. It's my second solo album. We released the fifth Broken Records album last year, and then this one's been sitting in the can for a wee bit, just waiting for time to release. It's coming out through Frictionless Music. The good people there are putting it out, and yeah, we'd love people to check it out and read it. Maybe even, heaven forbid, buy it if you've got a record player.
And
Keep
if
me in canoes. I need to buy a new canoe now.
and if people want to find out about any further releases, live shows, anything that you're up to, where's the best place for people to keep up to speed with you, Jamie?
Well, I'm entering this brave new world of the internet and making myself a web page at the moment. So that'll be typing in Jamie Sutherland Music will bring up all of the band, the Facebook, the Instagram, the Bandcamp, the website, which would go live in the next week or so. And you can also find us over at frictionlessmusic.com as well. So
Fantastic. Well, we'll drop some links in the show notes to this show. So if people
Mm.
haven't already gone over there, and we'll tag you in it when this comes out on the socials as well. So if people are following you already, then they can do so. Jamie, it's been an absolute delight talking
Super.
records with you, mate.
Yeah, it's
It's
been
been
great.
some
Thank you so
great
much for
song
having me.
that you've suggested. Yeah, absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much. And I will leave you to go and search for your canoe now, mate. Best of luck. But I'm just going to press stop now, but don't go anywhere.